I give a fuck? Why do I give a fuck? Why do I try so hard? Why do I care so much?
Welcome to Why Do I Give a Fuck? A cross-cultural conversation between myself, Deanne Tate,
and Johanna Thompson. In these times of great struggle and possible shift, we ask ourselves,
why do we give a fuck about any of it? How does the lens we see the world through impact what we see?
And what do we do about it? We're here.
I'm here.
Well, go on, friend. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm happy for you. You're back on your island.
I'm happy too.
Yay!
Just exist in joy. I'm so excited about that. So yeah.
Yay!
The world is chaotic all over the place.
Yes. I have to give you applause.
I love my applause. I'll receive it.
She's back on the island.
I don't know how to play with the things, but I know how to give. I want to give you applause too for tying the knot. And
yeah, we did it. And we are so glad you were here for that. So happy for that.
It was such a blessing. Thank you for inviting me. It was a wonderful, joyous ceremony filled with love, lots of fun, lots of laughter, lots of good eats, good community and conversation. So thank you for that.
Oh my gosh. And it's funny to all of our listeners and watchers, Jay was the celebrity of the gathering for sure. It's so funny because I'm like, I'm on the podcast too, but everybody was like, Jay, I'm so excited to be Jay. So you were the hit of the party, my friend.
Thank you. Sure. It was wonderful to see everyone. It really was.
Yeah, we did it. And now the marriage life begins. It's such a different, this is third time for both of us. So we better have gotten it right. Third time's a charm. Better have gotten it right for this time.
I love it.
We definitely did it differently. We definitely did it differently than the other two for me in terms of the amount of love that was in the room and we did the ceremony was in the round. So we were in the center of the circle and we had all of our friends and loved ones surrounding us for the ceremony. And that felt so good. It was an amazing sensation. So I highly recommend no more this husband and wife up at the top and with their backs to everybody and everybody behind them. Get in the center of the circle.
Always. I love circle speak.
It was
which
awesome.
Is like the theme of like 2026, right? Because we're in 2026. And it's like, how do we think about doing things differently and not having our mind controlled by the powers that be? And we've been looking at that kind of theme throughout the past episodes that we've come up with. And today we can kind of talk about it in real life, the kind of mind control that's going on. And we have just, to be completely transparent, had this really wonderful, robust conversation preparing to talk on video about what is going on in the world and making sure that we are pulling together our resources and understanding about some of the aggression that's coming out of the U.S. in particular.
Yeah, did we solve anything?
I think that we solved method of processing, which I think is the most important thing to be thinking about. Method of processing, having a good reasoning, like talking about these ideas, understanding each other's perspectives, and that's how we can move closer towards our North Star, which I think is important to do.
Yeah. So we've just had an hour-long conversation before we ever hit record.
We really enjoy each other, y'all, for real.
Yeah, we do. But also too, I think we're so mindful of this half hour together with our listeners and watchers, viewers, and so we want to try to deliver, as concise as we can, but we also know that you and I don't know everything. That was one conclusion that we came to in our hour-long discussions, that we don't know shit about nothing, and that we're always in that process of learning and growing and trying to discern and be mindful and curiosity and all of those things. And so, it took us an hour to get to that point so that we can come and talk to you guys.
Right, because it's not about knowing, right? That's like
No.
the white falsehood. You don't have to know everything, but it is about
No.
the process of exploring and expanding your understanding and your knowledge. I think that's
Right.
what it is that I want to be doing definitely in 2026 and moving forward. And it's the only thing that's going to keep us grounded and give us the new world that we are embracing at this moment.
Yeah. And we want, I think for me at least, I want, and I think you agree with me on this, we want our listeners and our viewers to, this podcast for us is about, why do we give a fuck about whatever it is we're talking about? And we want to spark people's interest in caring about something that maybe they haven't thought about before. And then that caring hopefully leads to a deeper dive of understanding, more learning about whatever, because we don't have all the answers. This is not a news program.
It's an exploration.
It is. And so don't take our word for any of it. Please go and do your own research. But I think if nothing else that we've learned for myself in the last 10 years, but certainly for some people that are just waking up in the past couple of years, is that we've got to be more curious. We've got to understand that we don't know everything, and that the typical voices that we've been listening to for years that supposedly told us what we needed to know, that's not necessarily where it's at in terms of really knowing everything, as we watch the media sources get twisted into the mind frames. And we're going to talk a lot about that, narrative versus truth. Yes. How do we discern between the two? So
one of the things that I like to think or say and exclaim is that I know enough to know that I know nothing at all except what my body is telling me. And then I always have to be reflective about where the messages that my body is telling me are rooted in, where they come from, right? So it's just like, okay, I'm feeling this way. I need to check in on why I'm feeling this way, where this comes from, and is that valid? And how do I measure what the validity of that is? And I like that to be kind of interwoven with where I've placed and created my values and my boundaries in my life. So that's a way that I engage most conversations and communication with people.
No, I mean, that's real. That's real for sure. I think we've gotten so far away from, I'm saying as a society, especially US based, we've gotten so far away from tapping into what our body is telling us, and resonance. I use the term that resonated with me a lot. And because that's where it's at for me. It's not necessarily that I know all the facts about something, but I can feel the energy behind what's coming towards me, the information. And it doesn't even have to be about whose mouth it's coming out of, right? It can be just about, does that ring true to me? And if it doesn't, why doesn't it? Do I need to learn more? And I think that's a piece of it that especially in the US society, we don't necessarily get taught how to do differently. It's like we're fed through our educational system, we're fed details, facts, and this is what you should know. And we're not taught how to go, well, that doesn't sound right to me, or, question things. And so, I don't know, for me in the past, at least in the past, especially in the past 2 years, but certainly in the past 10, I've gotten much more in touch with that. But I don't know as a society that we do that very well. So,
I mean, in the US, we get to sit in privilege, a lot of privilege that doesn't challenge us to explore what our understanding, our ideology is, because we're in comfort, right? It's when you get uncomfortable, is that when you decide that you want to explore different ways of being and existing because you don't like the way you're feeling in that moment. And so that's where they're less cultured in the US to actually want to have to expand your understanding. But there are a few of us that do. And I want to kind of talk about that in real world, like how we're doing that today, thinking about the aggression of the US across the globe, and the different strategies that they're using to cause conflict, to be able to gain control over different land and different natural resources and people. That's our GDP.
Yeah.
When I say GDP, I mean gross domestic product is like human capital is what, the US, because we don't produce anything else really other than human capital and kind of cultural ideology of how people should be democratic. We don't even demonstrate democracy in the way, or at least right now under this administration, we don't demonstrate democracy in the way that we've idolized.
We haven't ever, I don't think, in this, I think GDP should change to gross dominance and power.
I love that. Oh, okay.
Gross dominance and power.
Young people now are doing this.
Oh, yeah.
We're clicking our fingers. We're clicking our fingers for those who aren't watching us.
Right. Yeah. For those that aren't watching. Doing the little, because that's where it's at. I mean, you've created this in our notes. You've created this list of places that are being aggressed right now by the U.S. and its allies. I'm using air quotes. And it's all about power. It's all about power and dominance. And it always has been, but it has been so easy to buy into the narrative that we need this for survival. We need this because this person is the boogeyman and they're going to take us over and they're going to do this horrible thing to us. So we need to aggress first and respond with unprecedented power. And I don't know. I guess maybe the world is getting so much smaller, and with technology and with the ability to know what's happening on the other side of the globe in real time, the math ain't mathin' for the narrative that they're putting out. And so, where do we start? What country are we starting in?
Our aggression is being amplified. It's really being amplified. And like one of the prime examples recently is with the bombing of Venezuela and the kidnapping of President Maduro and their wife, and also not allowing people in community to hold the power on how it is that they want to exist in their respective geographies. And so I did want to talk about that, because it's not just like the bombing of Venezuela that has happened, but there was a resource that I found speaking about the countries that have been bombed under Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and the last administrations consecutively, and how much U.S. aggression has happened across the globe. And I think it's really critical and important for us to kind of look at that and look at the themes and the reasons why versus the narrative storytelling that most news and government is pushing.
Yeah, because if you find yourself, I want to say this before we start the video, because I understand this theme. If you find yourself thinking that this type of behavior is only to Trump's administration, it's
U.S. aggression.
It is U.S. aggression, and we've had many administrations, both Democratic and Republican, that have utilized this aggression to oppress and suppress others around the world. So,
Absolutely. Because when you're outside of the U.S. context, on a global context, you're not looking at who's Democratic and who's Republican. You're looking at what the impacts of your oppression is.
Who's dropping the bombs, for sure. Yeah. So let's listen to this. Let's watch this video together. And I hope that it will play continuously. I'm noticing a little bit of stop and go on my video. So hopefully you're hearing me continuously. All right, let's do this. It's less than a minute long.
We have been running helter-skelter because of insecurity. If other countries are coming with the help of creating stability or peace in Nigeria, why shouldn't we be support? I am in support of that.
The current issue in Nigeria is not a religious crisis. It is a problem of personal kidnapping and bandits, other groups trying to destroy the country itself. So I feel the government, the military we have, can solve this issue. We don't need the help of the United States. Nigeria government is good and can handle this.
As a matter of fact, it's a welcome development. Because if American mission in Nigeria is to take away the terrorists, it's a very good thing. Because nobody in Nigeria, if the president says any terrorists anywhere they are, it should be taken away. If America is helping Nigeria to do that, it's a welcome development. We in Nigeria should appreciate America for doing that for us.
Okay, so.
All right.
So I thought that was a very interesting way of thinking about how people are thinking the U.S. is not being an aggressor, but are coming in to help and support. And I know that you have an example of somebody from Iran that responded to something that you posted that also was asking for U.S. help. And there also is some Venezuelan responses to what we understand, well, what I understand as U.S. aggression, saying that it's helpful for the U.S. to come in, but the history of the U.S. coming into any global country is for U.S. gain in and of itself, for economic gain and for economic power, where people will think that the U.S. is actually helping to support the government work. And we know that the U.S. actually has its own agenda in most geopolitical territories.
They always have their own agenda. Absolutely. And yes, I did have someone send me a message responding to a post on my stories and Instagram that I shared. And this person, just for context, is a person who lives here in the States now, came to the States as a refugee from Iran. She has family still living in Iran. She identifies as a member of the Baha'i faith, which I also identify as. And the Baha'is have been traditionally oppressed and suppressed and persecuted in Iran for a long time, I think maybe into the centuries, because the Baha'i faith started in Persia and was against the norm of what the powers that be were in place at the time, and have been against the norm all along. So there are many Baha'is that are imprisoned. And so she was coming to me. I had shared a thread that a profile had shared on Instagram that was a series of posts that had been on X. I know it's kind of convoluted how they got to it, but I shared it because it resonated with me, as we were talking about what resonates, because it was talking about the people of Iran. It wasn't talking about the government doing right or doing wrong. It was talking about the people of Iran that were being oppressed and how the people deserve to be in their own agency and their own right to self-determination. And I know that the current government that's in place in Iran was installed by the US. We installed this government, and I don't trust that at all anymore because of what I've learned about what the US does in terms of their personal interests. And so this person was reaching out to me saying that I was sharing something that was coming from the Iranian government, which didn't make sense to me because it was speaking against the Iranian government. So I didn't quite understand why that was her response. And she was coming from her own lived experience of being persecuted as a Baha'i and having family members who were persecuted, which I wasn't arguing with. I mean, I understand that they have been experiencing that. I'm never going to, to judge or come up against somebody's lived experience. What she's been through is what she's been through. But in the exchange back and forth, what I found is she was saying, we need the U.S. We want the U.S. Iran has been under sanctions for years and years and years. And the people of Iran have really suffered greatly under the economic sanctions that the U.S. has had on them, as well as other powers in the world. And the narrative that the U.S. is spinning right now is that we want to come in, we want a regime change. They're not owning the fact that they put the regime in there in the first place, but we want regime change because they want a government in there that's going to do their bidding, because they want control of the area. They and the U.S. and Bibi Netanyahu, so Israel, occupied Palestine, they're both doing, the U.S. and Israel are working hand in hand with this. And so she was coming to me saying, we're being persecuted, we're being killed. I've had family members that have been killed. And so this Islamic State needs to go away. This Islamic government needs to go away.
Government, yeah.
And so that was the exchange. I answered her, and then I haven't heard back from her. So maybe I'll reach out to her again and try to see if she'd be willing to engage again with me on it.
And what I find interesting is the stories that are being amplified are the people that justify U.S. aggression. And if we went back to that link that was shared and scrolled down a little bit, we would be able to actually see a map. And that map actually shows all of the places that the U.S. has bombed. And I wanted people to be able to actually see that visual and see where the area is concentrated.
Okay.
And it's expanded into the Caribbean. So I'll just give you time to do that. And as we're pulling that up, we can think about So with Venezuela, the narrative storytelling is that they're trying to stop the level of narcotics that are coming through out of Venezuela. If we're talking about Somalia that was bombed, the narrative storytelling was that there's terrorists there. If we're talking about Libya, where the US is helping to fight counterterrorism. If we're talking about Nigeria, to the point of the video, we're talking about Christian persecution that's happening. And so the US is bombing to support and help the Christians. If we're talking about the Congo, we're talking about helping brokering peace amidst Rwanda. If we're talking about the conflict in the Caribbean, we're talking about like using strategy to pit people with the same like ethnic origin, Caribbean Americans or Caribbean people in and of themselves, and Black identified or Black born US citizens against each other. And then this whole narrative about terrorism in general that's coming out of the Islamic State, which from an oppressed standpoint are people that are fighting for their autonomy, individual rights, and to be able to rule and have power and dominion over their natural resources. And I want to go back over that list and talk about what we know the US wants. We want oil, natural resources out of Somalia, like gas, uranium, iron, out of Libya, petroleum, crude oil, limestone, iron ore, liquid gas out of Nigeria, lithium, tin, tantalum, graphite, iron ore. I'm going to list all of those things because we know that out of the continent of Africa, there's so much.
The resources are just vast. Yes.
In the Congo, there's tons of defense minerals, and the US economy is increasing its value and US dollar through the trade and control of all of these natural resources. And so if you're starting to follow like economic power, which is replacing people power in this space, you can see the actual reasons that the US is aggressing, and they're pulling on the heartstrings of people by saying it's these other things that we consider to be so horrible, unless you are coming from the place of the person who is oppressed. And I relate and identify that with that specifically being US born and being Black identified and female identified, what the level of oppression and the different narrative storytelling to vilify me in the territory.
Yeah, all of that, and that is, and I've just to let you know, I've got the map. I can share it if you're still interested in having,
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and add it to the stage here, and you can speak into that if you can see it.
Absolutely. So if you're recognizing the concentration of power is the concentration of bombing is the concentration of being able to gain power from all of these places that hold these very significant natural resources that would allow the US dollar to remain at a high price point on the trade market. And that's really what we're talking about. When whoever holds the purse strings is really being able to move the power. And that is how the US has gained control. And because there has been stronger and greater competition with, the US is targeting and focusing on China more than anything, because China is using a very soft power tactic of building up communities and developing relationships and being able to gain access and resource to natural resources in regions. Specifically on the island of Jamaica, there is a contract, I think a 30-year contract at both of the major ports. I think I might have mentioned this before in one of our episodes, but having the contract to own the ports means that you are making a determination of what products come in and out of the land, in which case, as you're running that, and you're also holding the economic resource, and you're also building the roads, and you're also getting the graphite that then you send out and then return as like iron ore and all of the things for the roofing and that we talked about previously, that is causing conflict for US having economic domination.
Yeah, the key word in what you said was control, having control over these systems, spaces, places, resources, and being able to move the resources that they're extracting from. So it all a part of the system, the monopoly of the system to deplete. I think it's really interesting, this map that you have on here, that we have on here. For those that are listening, we've got a map on on the screen that is titled U.S. Strikes During Biden, Obama, and Trump Administrations. And so there's a color coding. The red is for strikes that were under Biden, Obama, and Trump administrations. So that's all three of those administrations bombed in the areas that are red. The yellow is strikes only under Trump. So there are two specific regions that have been bombed under Trump only. And then the blue is strikes under Obama and Trump administrations. So the red is actually, that's the biggest grouping. The blue is the same as is what Obama and Trump did in both of their administrations. So this is not just under the Republicans. This is not just under, I know we like to demonize Trump, and he's got a lot to be demonized, but this is about U.S. power, and this is about U.S. dominance. And it doesn't matter who's in that big chair. It doesn't matter who's sitting behind that desk and what their base ideology is. The U.S. is all about dominance and power, gross dominance and power. So our new words for GDP.
And what I find very joyful is that the people are protesting in all of these places.
Yes.
In every single one of these places, the people are rising up against their governments, including the U.S., right? Because now we're about to be having like another protest against ICE aggressions in the U.S. that are trying to remove people that are migrant in our population. And in Iran, the people are rising up against their current government. In Venezuela, we're not hearing about it as much, but we know that the people want to be able to restore some type of normalcy to the way that their government is run. I'm not so much sure about the Congo because I haven't heard about protests in that way, but I do know that the people don't want to be bombed and don't want this fake narrative storytelling that Christianity is not allowed to be fake practice in the country. Yeah. So these are some of the things that we need to be curious about and explore. And recognize that there is a different vibration that's happening when people are coming together and deciding that this is not what it is that we're going to allow our governments to do. Right. And I think that's critical and important for us to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, it's so hard to think of, like, is there a shortcut to understand when you're being fed a story, when you're being fed propaganda? And I think I mentioned this in a previous episode that my sister and I were having a dialogue about this, specifically with regard to Israel and Palestine. And she was like, well, but I'm hearing that, this happened in Palestine and this happened in Israel. And how do you know which one is real? And I said, the basis for me in terms of trying to determine what's real is who has the power. And whoever has the power in any given situation is likely the one that controls the narrative, controls the propaganda. And if they are controlling that narrative, I would question whether or not it's worthy of listening to and worthy of believing, because they have the power over the voices. They have the power over the storytelling and the narrative. And so when we think about what's happening in Iran, and we think about the protests that are happening, and the amount of protesters that have been killed and have been imprisoned during those protests, there have been reports that there have been Mossad, which are the Israeli CIA folks, and CIA active agents in the streets, in the protests, causing the riots, drumming up and creating the chaos, which then leads to the killing of the protesters, leads to the mass incarceration of the protesters. And that storytelling is, there you could easily say, well, maybe they're making that up too. Maybe that's a lie too. But it resonates with me. It makes sense to me that the powers that be want to disrupt the uprising of the people. The people are saying, we no longer want to be oppressed under the systems. We are starving. We are being persecuted. We are being starved. We are being killed. And that to me is always going to ring true, more so than the government saying, well, we know what's best for you, or another power. And so I don't even know that I can speak wholeheartedly and truthfully to what's happening on the streets of Iran. But what I do know is that the people of Iran should be allowed to figure that out. The people
Absolutely.
of Iran should be the ones that figure out what it. There does not need to be any foreign entities coming in, U.S., Israeli, doesn't matter who it is, British. I mean, who are the typical actors?
Well, I would offer though, if there is foreign entity and foreign aid coming in the same way that we support people in the U.S., is that is being used by the people in the way that they want to have it used, rather than being dictated as to how things go. Right. And I also would offer to what you're saying that it's important to consider that multiple experiences are going to be experienced as real. Right. So even if it's something that you don't align with, it could be real to the people that are experiencing it. Mm-hmm. And the important thing is to be moving in this very restorative framework where you say, okay, let us talk about what's happened, just the basic facts of what's happening. And then let's talk about what the impacts are, because everyone's impact is real. I can't say I'm imagining and knowing from people that are supporting of Israel that in their mind, that is real for them, that they really feel that their position is their position. And I'm not invalidating that. I'm like talking about, okay, if your position is your position, are you also in consideration of the level of impact that you are creating to a whole other group of people? And if you are in that consideration, can you act and move differently? That's the thing, because people are going to be in their beliefs. Hopefully we can shift them by communication, but it's going to be real to them. And what's not real is AI, but people,
which is out there. It's out there. You and I were talking about that before we started recording. That there are so many AI videos out there that are supposedly speaking the narrative into Venezuela, into what's happening in Venezuela, where there are supposed Venezuelan people saying, yes, Maduro was horrible, and yes, the U.S. needs to come in and do what they need to do because we're being oppressed by all those narco terrorists, and it's like it looks very real, but it's not. So that's a whole nother part of how challenging it is for people who want to know what's happening in these different spaces to try to discern what that is, because AI makes it so challenging to know the difference. So.
And on that note, I welcome the challenge and the curiosity in continuing to expand our knowledge to these conversations.
Absolutely, because we'll just keep talking. So here comes 2026. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, as you move throughout your day, continue to ask yourself,
Why Do I Give a Fuck is produced in collaboration with Johanna and Deanne. Music by Norwegian musician Water. See you next time.